There's an epidemic in the gaming industry that is creeping its way into more and more places where it doesn't belong. Fast travel. It's steadily becoming the default method of getting around in this era of huge open-world games. As a mechanic, it's boring, sterile, and breaks the verisimilitude that developers try so hard to achieve. But what is the alternative? Can we do better? Well, I believe we can. Suppose you're playing Skyrim and you find yourself low on health, over-encumbered, and more than 30 seconds away from Breezeholm. You could undertake an epic trek across a tundra, slaying any foe who dares to stand between you and that one chest you have in the attic, striding into Whiterun bloodied, exhausted, but victorious. Or you could just zoom out into a omniscient god view of the whole world and click the Whiterun icon. In this situation, giving the player the option to fast travel essentially allows them to cheat themselves out of a memorable experience. If there was some sort of risk associated with fast travel, the player would reconsider their choice. Time for a history lesson. Even back in 1974, Dungeons & Dragons bore a shocking resemblance to the modern video game RPG. So many beloved game concepts, like rolling to hit, DLC, and random encounters can trace their roots back to D&D. Each of those mechanics could be the topic of their own 601 second video, but let's just focus on random encounters for now. Even if you've never played D&D, you're probably familiar with this, a 20-sided die, or as the cool kids call it, an icosahedron. In D&D, when you want to travel a long distance, you roll an icosahedron and compare your results with a table of monsters. Going back to our Skyrim example, let's say the player decides to fast travel. The loading screen pops up as normal, but in the background the game rolls a digital icosahedron to see if the player gets a random encounter. This intense calculation may take a few minutes. Ooh, bad luck. It looks like the player has randomly encountered a wolf. The game stops loading Whiterun and starts loading a random area in the wilderness. After the player spawns in and dispatches their foe, the load screen comes back up and begins loading Whiterun again. This kind of random encounter system mitigates the mechanical advantage of fast travel, making it a less appealing option for players. So now we've seen how drawing ideas from the earliest RPGs can help us make the act of fast travel more interesting. But have we considered why people fast travel in the first place? I believe it's because in most games, movement is boring. Consider a typical open world game. What is the player character's primary means of transportation? Now, I don't mean a horse or a car or something like that. On a fundamental level, the character moves with their feet. In light of this, I propose that we borrow a foot-based mechanic from a very different genre. I think this one is pretty self-explanatory. Let's look at our Skyrim example again. Imagine we map the WASD keys to the arrows on a DDR pad. Just like that, we've made Skyrim movement into a fantastic, immersive mechanic. The best part about this system is that we could still have fast travel, with a few tweaks of course. In order to successfully fast travel, the player must complete the song. This kind of a system would achieve the goal of making movement interesting, which again would mitigate the use of fast travel. So now we've figured out how to make movement more engaging, but that still doesn't address the underlying problem that a lot of open world games have. There's so much playable space, but very little reason to play in it. Many games attempt to incentivize exploration by dotting the map with collectibles and small challenges, but that still leaves the other 97% of the map barren with no meaningful content for the player to engage with. The solution to this lies in the most unusual of places. Games like Cookie Clicker and Adventure Capitalist demonstrate that people like seeing numbers get higher and higher, even if that number is meaningless. Therefore, a simple solution for open world games is to add more collectibles, like millions more. If at least 80% of the playable area had some sort of collectible tied to it, players would not be able to resist the urge to manually walk everywhere. It should be virtually impossible to move around in the world without accruing hundreds of collectibles. This is called Skinner box game design, and it's the only way that most modern multiplayer shooters retain a player base. Feel free to use these solutions in your own games, and if you have any ideas for improving fast travel, leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Be sure to check out the previous episode of Grasping at Straws, where I covered the genius of Call of Duty 4's opening. If you are an educational institution looking to use this video in a game design course, please contact me at oboshoes69@aol.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time as I embark in what is my most original video yet, a video essay about the Hobbit trilogy.